What can possibly bring Israeli Jewish scholars, fervent Ambedkarites, and Dalits together in Delhi? A Hebrew translation of B.R. Ambedkar's seminal groundbreaking text, Annihilation of Caste. Last week on Friday, the book was launched inside a small studio tucked away in South Delhi's Khirki extension with 30 guests. We met Sharon Rotbard, whose publishing house Babel has taken the book to Israel. 87 years after the speech was first published. We asked him how he got to know about the caste division in Indian society and also about his introduction to Ambedkar. So before we discuss about the book, I want to know, when did you first get introduced to the concept of caste in India? How did you get to know about it?
Usually this is a common knowledge all over all the world is aware of India's caste system. So I guess this is something that I probably got from much before I came to India. I heard about it, but in fact it came practically to my knowledge when as some kind of an experience from at the beginning, from very mundane things that happen every day here, when I was seeing how servants, even the mere concept of servant, which is so generalized in India, everyone has a servant, everyone has a gardener or a driver. Those kind of relationship between people is not something very common to me in my own life. So this is something that I started to experience when I started visiting India. And later on, I think more or less at the time that I read this book for the first time in 2016, I was teaching in India. I was guest professor in some college, and even in my streets there was a large group of Dalits who were practically living in the street. They were hanging near the garbage, and so those things that I saw were quite disturbing. And so of course I didn't understand a thing about how it goes. Usually I'm more into, here in India, I'm more into architecture. I teach architecture. So I was not very concerned about all those political internal issues, but very quickly I could see how they might be related to things that I know also from my own reality. Mm-hmm. So I wouldn't say that to be honest, I wouldn't say that I feel as concerned as many of the people who are debating here tonight feel. I could see how those debates are passionate, and of course it is very complex. The Ambedkarites and the Muslims and all. So complex the Indian society. But I must say that even regardless to the issue of the Indian society, I was first and foremost very impressed by Ambedkar as a person. I think he was probably one of the brightest minds in the 20th century. At least for me, I read many books, and so this is perhaps.
My second question would be, how did you get to know about Ambedkar? Like you said, you witnessed Dalits and the way they were being treated, but what was your introduction? How was your introduction?
The introduction to this book, I was introduced to Ambedkar throughout this book. So first I read this book, and then I read as much as I could. There are quite many texts writing of him online. But the one who introduced me to this particular book or edition was Shudra Sengupta, who was here in this evening. So he recommended me to reading this book, so I just went to and bought the book, and I think Arundhati Roy is of course a very fine writer, and her introduction is it is a lengthy text, but with a lot of power and passion. Very engaged writing, and I think he does the job because I mean I was introduced through Arundhati Roy and of course the text of Ambedkar himself. Yeah, so I mean I knew him. I knew Ambedkar from the book, and as for someone who writes and as a publisher, I mean I really appreciate good books, and I'm always happy to publish them if I can.
Rotbard, who is an architect based out of Tel Aviv, was one of the 4 people on the panel that comprised Israeli artist and OP Jindal University professor Achia Anzi, JNU professor Y.S. Aloni, and S. Anand, who is the co-founder of the publishing house Navayana. It is Navayana's edition of Annihilation of Caste, which contains an introduction by the Booker Prize winner Arundhati Roy that has been translated into Hebrew. During the discussion, Rotbard said that Ambedkar conceptualized the idea of society and of differences in a manner that somehow rectified the materialist thinking of Karl Marx. It is something that he wants to introduce to the Israeli readers. What is it that you're looking to introduce to Israeli audience through this book?
So this is quite, I think it is related first and foremost to my own reading of the book. As I said in this evening, I've been traveling for quite many years to India. I have a ongoing feeling that whatever I see, it is so strange to me. It is so different than what I really know. So my basic experience in India, it is a continuous misunderstanding. Sometimes, and it happens quite often, that to understand better, I read books to learn more, so I think this book gave me a certain understanding about India, about caste, about the structure of the society. But when reading it, I realized that in fact there are many things which I thought that I don't understand when it comes to the Indian society, but in fact I can quite easily project many of the ideas to the reality of the Israeli society that I know, or even other societies in Europe that I know. So there is a very important universal message in his writing. There are a lot of, as it was said quite often tonight, as it deals with principles, much of those principles could be implemented, or it could provide new insights for other societies as well. As far as it goes, the Israeli society, first and foremost, I think that one of Ambedkar's contribution to the whole debate is the fact that society is not composed only by classes, which means that you do not have to think about differences between people only on an economical basis. There are all other components of the society or of the identity which are not necessarily related to how much I earn, or how much I inherited, or how much did I lose, but to maybe more ancient origin, such as the historical origin of the family or the geographical origin of the family. And in many cases, those factors which usually we don't have much control over them, no one can really decide the color of his skin or his eyes or his hair. But people are born with it, and in some cases, this burden of identity is something that may cause a lot of suffering to many people. So I could quite easily project this notion of caste into what I know around me, and in some cases, I think also in a different scale, there's also the question of religion, how it affects society and how it affects the politics of the society at a certain moment, which we can find many parallels between India and Israel, but also not only in terms of the organization of the politics, but also in terms of the organization of society. Right. So, I mean, I think that it has huge relevance for us and maybe for many other countries.
So, where do you rank Ambedkar among the global leaders and Annihilation of Caste in terms of global thought that you have come across till now?
Ranking is a tricky word, but as I said, I think that Ambedkar was probably one of the brightest minds in the 20th century as far as it concerns humanities and politics. So I think it is a great political thinker, leader, and which, as it was said, and of course this is part of his writing that I'm not familiar with it, but he's really kind of Moses to his own community. So I think it is someone not less important than Gandhi, at least for me. And I must add that I was born on October 2nd. So, but for me, I think today is much more important than Gandhi. Or I would say that if I need to rank him, I think for me he's as necessary as Hannah Arendt.
Right. The conversations covered a range of tough questions. Why Ambedkar never achieved popularity beyond India's borders? How a foreigner could engage with a figure who championed the cause of the Dalits, a movement so deeply rooted in the Indian cultural landscape. The launch of a Hebrew translation was a step closer to the attempt at globalizing the legacy of one of the most dynamic personalities of modern India. This is Monami Ugoy with camera person Manisha Mondol reporting for ThePrint.